Alyson Noel, it's our pleasure to meet you here and to talk to you on behalf of our readers. So first of all, I wanted to jump in and ask you, how did you come to start writing about paranormal?
Well, I often say that I steal from my own life, and that if an experience didn't kill me, I'll find a way to write about it. So I had 7 previous books to the Immortal series that were all realistic contemporary standalones, and they all contained pieces of my life and things that had happened to me. But a few years ago, I went through a time of very deep grief where I lost 3 loved ones in 5 months, and then 6 months after that, my husband was diagnosed with leukemia, and I almost lost him as well. And he's in full remission now, so everything's fine where that's concerned. But going through that experience was really dark, and it was really life-changing, and it got me thinking a lot about the questions that I had successfully avoided up until then: the soul's journey, immortality, where do we go after we die, the afterlife, is there an afterlife, this idea that my loved ones had passed on but I could still feel this bond with them, and how could that be possible. And just like I did when I was 12 and my parents divorced and I started writing terrible poetry trying to deal with those emotions, I started writing ever more on the side, trying to deal with all of these questions in my own grief that I was going through. It was a secret project. It was I was under contract for 3 other books at that time. I didn't even know if I was going to try to show anyone this book or even try to sell it to my publisher. It was just something that I really needed to do for me. And I poured all of my grief into Ever's character. And as she began to heal from her grief, as did I, so it became a very cathartic experience. And I found myself really sort of enamored with this idea of being able to explore these questions through a fantasy world. And for a writer, it really is a very rich environment, and it's sort of a creative playground where you can convey a message, but through a really imaginative, fun, colorful way that I couldn't really do within the confines of a contemporary standalone that I had been writing before. And I had so much fun with the Immortal series that I decided to continue writing fantasy with the Riley Bloom series and the Soul Seeker series.
So you've done this research as a writer, you've created this amazing character and her journey. Now, Alyson person, do you believe in that stuff?
I believe that there is far more to this world than what meets the eye. I think we've barely tapped the surface of what we know and what we can conceive of. And as a person and as a writer, I like to be open to all sorts of possibilities. It certainly feeds my craft as a writer to keep a very open mind. But you know, the day I think that I have it figured out, then I have nothing left to say. So I've had a lot of fun exploring all of these different possibilities and ideas through the books that I write.
So if as a person you were given a chance to choose one supernatural power, what would you choose that power to be?
Instant manifestation. I explored that in the Immortals. So just this idea that you can conceive of an object in your head and have it appear before you, I think would be amazing. I mean, you could do really great social work and you could feed everybody and house everybody. And then, you know, I could also manifest a huge pile of designer shoes and have fun with that as well. So there's a lot of applications to instant manifestation, and I'd be all for it.
Now, what is really right now happening in the market? You have all the stories about vampires, werewolves, fallen angels. All of these are these mega stars of the young adult novels right now. But you have chosen to use humans. They have these special powers, but they are human. Why did you make that choice?
I didn't really have anything new to add to the vampire genre. I love the vampire genre, but I think that so many avenues have already been explored with that I really have fun with reading and admire, and I didn't have anything new to add to that. But I also, you know, with the Immortals, I wanted to explore the soul's journey, and vampires traditionally do not have souls. And I was very interested in this idea of alchemy, that man has been trying to find the elixir of life almost since the beginning of life. And I thought how interesting it would be to sort of develop a character who had had success with this. I like to ground my books in very real things. Alchemy is a very real thing. Shamanism is a very real thing. And I sort of like to take those mythologies and then tweak them and build my stories around them. So I like to have one foot firmly based in the real world and the other implanted in the fantasy world.
Now, in Destined, it's pretty clear, I think, who is on what side. At least it seems to be clear who is on which side. Do you have a favorite in that?
My favorite character in Fated is definitely Dara Santos. I had a lot of fun writing her. You know, I was a bit envious of her life when I first started writing her. She's 16. Her mother's a Hollywood makeup artist. She's grown up traveling the globe, you know, moving from movie set to movie set, surrounded by celebrities. It all sounded very glamorous. At 16, I would have gladly have traded my boring suburban existence for one just like that. But as I began writing her, I realized how it's made her very lonely. She's never had a real home. She's never had relationships that lasted longer than it took to film a movie. And it's left her sort of unstable and unsettled. And she has a real vulnerability about her. And in order to succeed in her destiny as a seeker, and in her life as a person, she's going to have to learn to sort of let down those emotional guards and let people in. And she also gets to date the very, very dreamy Dace Whitefeather, and that's another reason to be jealous of Dare.
Now, most of your novels, I think with the exception of one, have been really written for young adults. Was that a conscious decision on your part that you wanted to write for that audience?
It wasn't. When I first started writing, I don't know if I made really any conscious decisions. I had no idea what I was doing. I just had this story I really wanted to tell that just happened to have a teenage protagonist. And I didn't even think of it in terms of genre until it came time to, you know, sign with an agent and start, you know, submitting it to publishers. Honestly, that's how green I was. I was just writing a story, and I wasn't even really thinking about the intended age group audience or anything like that. When I got my first book deal, it was for 2 books, and I had already sort of started playing around with the second book that I wanted to write, which also had a teenage protagonist. And I've come to realize that, one, it's the voice that comes the most naturally to me. My inner 16-year-old is still very alive and well, and quite loud in my head. So those emotions and that sort of way of viewing the world comes, you know, more directly to me than writing about someone more closer to my age. But it's also for a writer, that adolescent experience is a really ripe ground to work from. It's filled with first-time experiences. It's filled with the contradiction of wanting to be your own independent person, but kind of still liking having your parents there looking after you, wanting to really make your mark and be different, yet wanting to be accepted by your peers. It's the first time you fall in love, the first time you have that special kiss, the first time a friend betrays you, and you can never experience those things the same way again. You know, in your adult life, you become a little more guarded after the first time someone's hurt you, so it's just a really ripe time to write about, and it's the one time that speaks the loudest to me.
If you had a chance to time travel and go back to the times when you were starting to write, but had the experience that you have now, would you have done something differently?
No, I made every mistake in the book. I embarrassed myself in innumerable ways, but I wouldn't change that because that's all part of the journey. And those early rejections were very, very helpful. I mean, at the time, of course, they were very, very painful. But I learned a lot from those rejections, and I learned, it pushed me to figure out what I needed to do, to learn more, to try harder. And it also toughens you up for when you are published, because really the rejection never does end for anyone in the creative field. Once, you know, you have a painting in a gallery or a book on the bookshelves, there are people lining up to critique it. You know, or to say, no, I don't want to buy that, or no, we're not going to make a movie of that. So the chance for rejection doesn't go away just because you're published. And so I actually learned an awful lot from all of my earlier mistakes. So I wouldn't change it.
And what, in your opinion, is the most important quality that the good writer has?
Perseverance.
Mm.
Really, I mean, talent definitely has its place, as we all know, in creative imagination. But when people say that this business is a marathon, not a sprint, they are not kidding. You know, each new book is just a new beginning for the author. There are no guarantees that an audience is going to like it, that your editor is going to like it, that the world is going to like it. And I think I admire the authors that have been able to forge really long-lasting careers in this business, and I think that takes a lot of grit.
In your own writing, do you have any particular writing routine or writing fetish? You know, you want to wear pink slippers or something like that. Do you have any sort of quirky thing?
I do.
Yeah.
I'm really partial.
Can you share it with us?
I'm really partial to the egg slipper.
Uh-huh.
I have pink egg slippers that I wear every day. That is in my tracksuit. It's my writing uniform. Mm-hmm. It's not at all glamorous. And I always brew a fresh cup of green tea, and I light a scented candle, and I put on a crystal necklace that was given to me by a reader, mm-hmm. and put on my headphones and start the playlist that I made for that particular book, and then begin writing. Oh, that's my sort of ritual.
Yeah. If I was going to ask you to tell us about 3 contemporary young adult writers whose books you would not miss for anything, who would these 3 be?
Oh, that's such a hard question.
I said 3, not 1.
I know, you were kind with the 3. I will go on record as saying there are like hundreds that I would recommend. But off the top of my head, I really love A.S. King's books. I think that they're very thoughtful and well written and engaging. And her latest was called Everybody Sees the Ants, and I really liked it. I also really loved Andrew Fukuda's book, The Hunt. Mm-hmm. It's a vampire tale, but like you've never read. These vampires are vicious, and the boy is the last, one of the last remaining humans in the world, having to pass himself as a vampire, and it was completely a page turner. I absolutely loved it. And for the 3rd, this is so difficult. I really loved Gail Forman's Where She Went. The 2nd book too. I love the first one as well, but I thought it was just really extraordinary, written through the boy's point of view after his girlfriend had this terrible crash and what became of their relationship. And I thought she just really nailed it. I thought it was beautiful.
What are your best memories that came from you being a writer?
The day that my very first book, Faking 19, was published back in 2005, I went to my mom's house and picked her up, and we went to every local bookstore within a 20-mile radius to stand in front of the bookstore shelf where my book was and sort of jump up and down and squeal with glee. And my mom had been a big part of my writing process. I had a really difficult adolescence with a lot of financial strain, and she is the one that introduced me to reading and the magic of books, and she was always there supporting me. So it was really special to be able to share that moment with her.
Alyson, thank you very much for this interview. It's been an absolute pleasure. It's always fun to meet a writer who's so engaged, and I'm sure that a lot of our readers are going to learn a lot about you from this book and go on reading this series and next one to come.
Thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you.